What's going on, guys? Gamers Goon here today with your Big Ten preview and predictions of the Big Ten tournament. I'm only doing the Big Ten as I don't really have all that much time. I got a game before the quarterfinals of my intramural championship later tonight, and this is going on about. This game is happening right about now. I'm not really sure on the score of it currently, and I don't have my phone on me. It's back getting charged. So I don't really know much about this Ohio State Wisconsin game, what's going on, but I wanted to do a fill out a bracket. And I just got home from class, so I figured I'd come in here and I would do that for you guys today. This Ohio State Wisconsin game, personally, I don't know what the current outcome is, but we will. Can we move this first? We'll move this here, and then you know what? I'm going to take Ohio State. I think Ohio State is they started to figure it out a little bit. They're still not a good team. They still have struggled a little bit, but they played a lot closer recently, and they're still figuring things out. And they're a team that I think could potentially get it going late into the season and figure things out and find their way. Making a little bit of a run here in the Big Ten bracket. I don't know about how far they go in March Madness. If they even make it to March Madness, they'd probably have to win out here to even make it a case for March Madness. But this is a team that I think could be one of those teams that you could watch out for a little bit of a run. And then you get this other game that's later tonight, Minnesota versus Nebraska. Two teams that I think could play tough. Minnesota, they've gone through they've struggled. I think they have 2 or 3 wins in this Big Ten season. However, I don't think they're really all that bad. They probably could beat Nebraska. But I'm going to take Nebraska here. I think Nebraska probably gets it done. And I really like one of their guards. I think his name's like Topanga or something like that. One of their point guards. Really like that kid out of Nebraska. And like the energy he brings. So we're going to bring Nebraska in to play Maryland. And then tomorrow's games, we're going to look at here. Rutgers versus Michigan tomorrow. Let's get a box going. I have a bad feeling about Michigan here. I think Michigan, obviously, they always figure out a way. When push comes to shove, they always figure out a way to find their way, getting a little hot going into March. And Rutgers is a team that I respect. I really do think Cliff Amarui is one of the better players in the country, one of the better players in the Big Ten. If it wasn't for Zach Edey, potentially the best big man in the Big Ten, him or Hunter Dickinson. But Michigan, I think probably a little bit too much to handle for Rutgers. Rutgers are a team that could easily give Michigan some run, but I think at the end of the day, Michigan, you got to bank on them getting hot going into March. That's what they're known for. They are the team and the Big Ten that gets the hottest during March, and they always find their way making it a little bit of a run in March Madness. And I expect them to start it off, especially this year, coming in a little bit underranked in the Big Ten play. They still should probably be fine to make the tournament, even if they lose to Rutgers. But I think you got to bank on Michigan getting a little bit hot going into March Madness. Then Ohio State, Iowa. Once again, I think Ohio State is a team that they're kind of one of those teams that yes, they're the 13th seed in the Big Ten, but they're a sneaky 13. You got to pay attention. I don't think you can slack against them. But one of the best scoring programs in college basketball, especially lately. Iowa, they've been one of the better offenses. And I think they probably win that game. So we're going to go Iowa there. And Iowa will go on to face Michigan State on Friday. You got to be careful with Iowa. A lot of their guys can get hot in their games, whether that's one of the McCaffrey brothers, whether that's Chris Murray, Keegan Murray's brother. And they also have a freshman. I forget his name. It's like I think it's like Patrick Saint. I don't remember his name, but he's a guy that you got to watch out for because he also can start lighting up from three. Then you get Penn State, Illinois, and as you guys know, I am an Illinois fan, but I'm a little bit nervous. 0-2 against Penn State so far this year. Jalen Pickett has had everybody's number. Um, But I think if you're Illinois, you bank on the fact that you're a better team than Penn State. You should beat Penn State. And you need to come in there with the attitude that you belong there. You need to come in there with the attitude that it's not going to be a cakewalk, but you can run the table here. Illinois is a team that, once again, very much similar to Michigan. If they get hot at the right time, they could make a run. They haven't made a run in March in a long time. They did not make it the last few years with Iota Sumu or Kofi Coburn, but they are a team that I think with Terrence Shannon Jr., Matthew Meyer, Coleman Hawkins, Dane Danger, if you can get them all running at the same time and doing it well, you could find themselves playing deep into this tournament in the Big Ten, and you could find themselves making their way on a little bit of a run in March. But that's why I think Illinois is probably going to win this game. They've lost 2 times to Penn State, and it's hard to beat a team a third time. So I got to go with Illinois. I'm a little bit biased there when I'm doing it, but I think Illinois probably should win that game. No excuses for Illinois. Then we get to the last game of Thursday night. We get Nebraska going to Maryland. Well, they play in Indianapolis, or I think it's actually in Chicago this year. They're playing Nebraska in Maryland. Two teams that, like I said, I feel like Nebraska is a team that can give almost anybody in the Big Ten a little bit of a run. Not necessarily saying that they can do it consistently, but I think that they're a team that could give you a little bit of a scare. And I do also think Maryland is one of those teams. Yes, they're the 6th seed, but there's not that much of a difference between the 6th seed and the 2 seed in the Big Ten. There's really the only difference between any of these teams is Purdue. Purdue's a lot better than everybody else, but basically 2 through like 9 are all interchangeable. And Maryland is one of those teams that I think, yes, they haven't had the most ideal of seasons for them, but I think once again we're talking about one of those teams that if they start striking, if you get Jameer Young going at the right time, they're a team that could play their way into March Madness, going on a hot streak and running it through the Big Ten tournament. So I think we're going Maryland there. And we get another one here, and we get the first game of Saturday, March 11th. Or, well, we get the first game of Friday to go on to Saturday, March 11th, against whomever is the winner of Iowa and Michigan State. But Michigan and Purdue. Both of these teams are teams that I could see going on the run. Purdue isn't really in need of going on a run. Purdue, I'm going to imagine, is probably starting to think what's next. They haven't had that big run in March Madness. They are one of the best teams in the country. If there's a year, it's probably this year. And typically with these teams that could make that big run in March Madness, I feel like they don't come necessarily ready to play in the conference tournaments. But a team like Michigan, you can bet your money, is going to be playing. And I think Juwan Howard and company is going to get it done and beat Purdue and move on to the game on Saturday to play in the semifinals of the conference bracket. So Purdue, they get upset in their first game, but they will be probably still easily a 1 seed, and they have nothing to worry about going into March because they still have Zach Edey as one of the best players, if not the best player in the entire country. Then we get to Iowa versus Michigan State. One of these games that I think a lot of people could be watching and thinking this could be a dogfight. Iowa, one of the better scoring teams. Michigan State, you never know what Tom Izzo's going to bring. He's got them going right into March. He's a well-coached team. I don't know, man. This is going to be one of those games that I think could give a lot of people, so if you're a fan of either of these teams, give you a lot of headaches, give you a lot of stress. But I'm going to end up taking Iowa. I do think Iowa is going to be the ones here to win the game. I think they could potentially see this run here going on in the Big Ten tournament. So I'm taking Iowa over Michigan State. So both of these two teams that had the first round bye come in and they immediately lose to their opponents and they find their way out early in the Big Ten tournament. And then we get Illinois versus Northwestern. Another game that we've seen recently, and Illinois got the better of them, but Northwestern's also gotten the better of Illinois. Two teams that are fairly evenly matched. You look at one side with Boo Buie, Chase Audige. You look at the other side of guys that have been heroes lately, like a Sincere Harris or a Ty Rogers, able to make big plays. Illinois is going into this game potentially down Jaden Epps, as Jaden Epps has a concussion, or at least had a concussion, and we don't know his status going into this tournament at all. And I think that's a big problem if you're Illinois or an Illinois fan. I don't know if you can win this game without the offense of a Jaden Epps. Northwestern's at times shown that they can stop Terrence Shannon. They've at times proved that they can limit Matthew Meyer a little bit. You got to have Sincere Harris in there to stop Boo Buie. You got to have Ty Rogers in there to stop Chase Audige. It's going to be a dogfight. If Illinois is going to win this one, I think Jaden Epps needs to play. And without knowing if Jaden Epps is going to play, I'm going to take Northwestern. But this could obviously be Illinois. Depending if Jaden Epps plays, I think that changes things. But I think that's one of those games that we're looking at, and we're saying potentially we could be in a little bit of a fight. Then we get Maryland versus Indiana, a good Indiana team going in to play Maryland, who I also think is a very good team. But you look at Trace Jackson Davis on one side, you look at Jameer Young on the other side. This is going to be a fun game. Jalen Hood-Schifino on Indiana. I'm going to take Indiana. I do like Trace Jackson Davis. I do like Jalen Hood-Schifino, and I think that they could be going on a little bit of a run going into March. And this is a team that I'm willing to take. Maryland, I think they could win the game, but I think Indiana is going to end up winning it all on Friday. Then we get to Michigan versus Iowa. Michigan versus Iowa, we'll bring it up here. Michigan versus Iowa. Once again, a team that I think could get hot is Michigan. Iowa, another team that I think could get hot at the right time. And in these tournaments, you got to rely on one thing. You got to rely on your offense. And Iowa's a team that I trust offensively. I think that they're a good offensive team. They're going to put up points. Michigan can put up points, but I think if you're going to pick an offense, I think you pick Iowa to get it done. And then Northwestern versus Indiana here to go in to Championship Sunday, Selection Sunday, that is. Northwestern, Indiana, big showdown on Saturday. If you're looking at Northwestern, I don't really see who on their team in a situation that it's going to play for a championship. I don't see how Indiana's not going to get the ball to Trace Jackson Davis. And when they get the ball to Trace Jackson Davis, I don't see who on Northwestern is going to be able to stop that guy. So I'm going to take Indiana to get themselves a ticket to the championship there on Sunday. And we get the last selection. Who do I think will be the champions of the Big Ten? Indiana, Iowa, both teams that I think could get hot going into March. Both teams that I think have good players. Both teams that I could see winning the Big Ten tournament. And like I said, Trace Jackson Davis is hard to plan for. Iowa, they got a lot of shooters on their teams. Hard to plan for. This might be different if Luka Garza was still at Iowa, but he's not. But I'm taking Indiana. I'm going to take Indiana to win it all and win the Big Ten tournament here. So you heard it here first. Indiana is my pick to win the Big Ten tournament.